Paladins. Alright, so forget everything you might have heard about Paladins. In Baldur's Gate, Paladins are amazing. If you want to go a warrior kit, you can hardly do worse than a Paladin. You can hardly do better than a Paladin. These guys are just amazing. Their Lay on Hands ability is an amazing lifesaver in a pinch. It happens instantaneously, so you don't have to worry about any cast time or anything like that. This Detect Evil ability is useful in quite a few quests, as well as locating the straggling enemies on a map. The Protection from Evil ability, usually by the time you really want to use this, you'll probably already have Circle of Protection, which is better in every way. And the Turning Undead, your clerics are probably going to do that better. But then you get access to priest skills, you get better saving throws. Paladins are just better in every way. And because of the way Baldur's Gate handles its ability scores, you don't have to worry about whether or not you can play a Paladin. Well, what about the Paladin code? Well, I'll get a little bit into that a little bit later into the stream. But needless to say, the Paladin code is probably going to help you a hell of a lot more than it's going to hurt you in this game. As for kits, you have the Cavalier, which I personally think is a very fun class. Now, it does have that disadvantage that it can't use missile weapons. Missile weapons in this game are very powerful. But you get a +3 bonus to hit and damage rolls against all fiendish and draconic creatures. Doesn't matter a lot in Baldur's Gate 1, but by the time you get to Baldur's Gate 2, you will be loving this bonus. This Remove Fear, also extremely useful. This immunity to Charm, Fear, Poison, and Morale Failure. Yeah, this is a killer ability. Inquisitor. This is probably, with one exception maybe, the best of the Paladin kits. You get Dispel Magic once per day. What did you lose for it? You lost the Turn Undead, which I already said you didn't need. You lost some of the pre-spells. That's kind of a bit of a sad day. And you lost the Lay on Hands. Trust me, Dispel Magic is better than Lay on Hands, especially at an almost instant cast speed. You also get True Sight once per day. This ability right here pretty much nullifies all of the disadvantages that you just got. True Sight in this game is amazing. And then finally, you're immune to Hold and Charm. Again, that's just the best of all worlds as far as your main character could be concerned. Undead Hunter. You also lose the Lay on Hands abilities, but I personally don't think that you get as much benefit in exchange for the Lay on Hands ability as you do with the other classes. It's still, in my opinion, an overall trade up. Being immune to Hold and Level Drain is amazing. And the +3 hit and damage roll against undead creatures, some of the toughest enemies in these games are undead. And then finally, you get this kit. The Blackguard, or Blackguard. And this is your typical anti-paladin. And he is a beast. He starts off with immune to Level Drain and Fear. Both very powerful abilities that the enemies in these games love to use. He can still turn undead. Instead of healing, he can absorb the health from enemies. He can literally steal his health from the target. So not only do you heal, but you just hurt the opponents who are trying to kill you. And then he gets this amazing poison weapon ability that just, it basically turns him into a melee powerhouse. You combine this with Whirlwind Attack, and you are going to just destroy many enemies in your path. Later in the game, you do run into a lot of enemies that are immune to poison, but until then, this will wreak havoc. And then you've got Aura of Despair, which debuffs all of the enemies around you that you are fighting. The disadvantage, you have to be evil. And this is a disadvantage in this game. They did try somewhat to balance playstyles as much as they could. I would still say that playing a good character is overall the better way to go in the Baldur's Gate series. But you can play evil, and if you're gonna play evil, it's really hard to beat a Blackguard. So, Paladin kits, they're pretty much all improvements. Inquisitor, definitely the one you want to go with. Cleric! Alright, so clerics in this game are basically a necessity. You need someone to do some backup healing, and you've got two choices for that. There are basically two priest class in this game, technically three, but for the most part, for what we're concerned, there are two priest class. The first is cleric, and they are your traditional in-combat healers. They get to wear lots of heavy armor, they get to cast all of those healing spells that you're going to need to stay alive, they can turn undead, which, especially at low levels, can be very useful. But they don't get to use the best weapons. But for the most part, you just want them in combat to absorb extra hits and to heal. As far as the cleric kits go, basically this is what alignment is your cleric. Are you evil? You're probably going to want to take Priest of Talos and gain the extra abilities that Priest of Talos gets. Are you neutral? Priest of Helm. Good. Priest of Lathander. It's really that simple. Your other priest selection is Druid. Druids can be a lot more effective in combat. They get better weapons than clerics do. You do have to worry about their survivability because they don't get to equip the best armors in the game. However, there is one armor in particular that is basically tailor-made for druids, and it essentially makes them another tank in your party, despite that setback. So, druids are excellent frontline fighters, and on their spellcasting level, they're probably between the cleric and the mage for usefulness. They have in particular one spell, the Insect Swarm spells, that in Baldur's Gate 2, it is going to be your go-to spell for everything. I highly recommend taking a druid along with you. Fortunately, the game is going to supply us with a really good one. But if you want to play the druid, it is definitely a viable class to play. As for what druid you take, well, you've got Totemic Druid, which lets you summon a spirit animal. Spirit animals aren't actually all that bad, but they kind of cap out in their usefulness really, really quickly. Losing the ability to shapeshift, well, shapeshift is not as useful in this game as it is in the pen and paper version. You've got the shapeshifter that actually is pretty beast. Like, literally, since they can turn into a werewolf. The werewolf is not as powerful as the actual werewolves that you can fight. Really quickly, I'm going to actually mute sound for the game. Because you're probably getting tired of listening to that music looping by now. But you lose the ability to wear armor, including that awesome armor I told you that can make them frontline. But as the werewolf, they can still frontline. They just can't cast spells while doing it. And then you have the Avenger. The Avenger gets some very interesting shape-shifting abilities. The Sword Spider is probably the best of them, although in certain circumstances the Fire Salamander is really good as well. Don't worry about the Baby Wyvern. And they get some additional spells. But they lose the ability to wear armor, and I believe that includes the armor that I was mentioning before. And they lose some frontlining ability because they suffer this hit to their strength and constitution. Now, if you're building the character, this isn't going to hurt you that much. But still, it would be nice to not lose that hit. I personally think that not being able to wield the heavier armor is probably enough as it is. Of these, I'd say it was a toss-up. You can actually probably go with vanilla Druid for most of the game. Shapeshifter is probably the best kit besides that. Hey guys, it's Divine Erdrick. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more content coming soon. You can also follow me at twitch.tv/derdrick or on Twitter at Divine Erdrick. Thanks again.